Tonight on Real News, President Obama and the politics of distraction. Essie, what are we talking about tonight?
Well, Obama's made a big push for women and gay voters, as we all know. But is it working? Not according to recent polls. So we'll take a look at Obama's divide and conquer strategy tonight.
Sounds interesting. All that and much more on Real News from the Blaze coming up in just 60 minutes.
This is not going to be about politics. This is about principles. We're going to take it upon ourselves to be part of the solution.
We are going to restore history. Restore our honor. Restore his idea that character is what matters.
Let us not lose this battle because we sat down.
This is the Glenn Beck Program.
Well, hello, America, and welcome to the Glenn Beck Program. And GBTV, this is the network that you are building. Do you remember when the Obama camp said conservatives are waging a war on women, and the media picked up on the, on that route, and they took the ball and they ran with it? Well, here's how in touch they are with the American people. In the latest CBS News New York Times poll, Obama's support among women has dropped 5 percentage points over the last 2 months, dropping from 44% from 49%. Meanwhile, on the other side, Romney has seen his support with women go up 3% from 43 to 46. So Romney actually wins and leads with women. Uh-oh. The same poll also shows he's now ahead of Obama overall by 3 points. The media is so in bed with this guy and so detached from reality and in the tank for Obama, all he has to do is say something, and if he says something nice about one group, he's labeled the first fill-in-the-blank president. Obama can come up and say, I have the utmost respect for the homeless amputee panhandlers in this nation. And Barack Obama suddenly becomes the first homeless, armless president. It's getting ridiculous. I mean, when the Atlantic is calling BS on all of this, you got trouble. New York Magazine has dubbed him the first Jewish president, of course. American Foreign Press labeled him as the first Asian president. Really? Geraldo called him the first Hispanic president. In 2008, Newsweek called Obama the first woman president. And, of course, Newsweek declared Obama the first gay president. So let me see if I have this right. We have the first gay, female, male, Hispanic, Jewish, Asian president. But they forgot one. Socialist president. Of course, they didn't want to put that face on him. They put that one on all of us. They keep coming up with all of these titles for him because he's not really an individual. He's the composite president. That's why during the campaign, they couldn't decide. Was he FDR? No. He must be like Ronald Reagan. No, he's not Reagan. He's Lincoln. Really? I just wish he was an individual who actually stood up, said the truth, said exactly who he was, and stood for all Americans in the end, not just those he agrees with. Bush always respected the protesters. Obama mocks them. He's divided us all the way. What does it mean when somebody says, oh, he's the first female president? Really? Lift his skirt. I don't think that's true. Here's what it means. Somebody is against women. According to the president, conservatives are. First gay president? Who's fighting the gays? According to the president, the conservatives are. You see, in every situation, he has an opportunity to unite, but he always chooses a straw man or a boogeyman to point at, an enemy, which divides us. Do you remember this from the midterm elections? Incredible language from the president.
Latinos sit out the election instead of saying we're going to punish our enemies and we're going to reward our friends who stand with us on issues that are important to us. If they don't see that kind of upsurge in voting in this election, then I think it's going to be harder. And that's why I think it's so important that people focus on voting on November 2nd.
I've never seen a president talk about the people who disagree with him as enemies that need to be punished. You see, he and his surrogates isolate the right and anyone who stands against him. and they reframe them as the enemy. And they do it most times with lies, because the ends justify the means. But here's what I really want you to remember tonight. The sum is greater than its parts. That's America. That's who we've always been. We're the melting pot. At least we used to be. And we have to start telling each other the truth. Because a house divided against itself cannot stand. And the president and his surrogates know it. I'm sure he cares about the country. Maybe this is just a shallow attempt to get elected. It doesn't really matter. Might be that he's a Marxist who wants to fundamentally transform things, but let's not argue. At GBTV, we're going to keep exposing the lies and this fantasy land inhabited by Barack Obama and the media. Because we have to stand for the truth and then move forward. What this guy does is incredible. Never seen it before. Did you hear today that we've actually found out that he is now editing his own name into history books and history at the White House? In Ronald Reagan's official biography at whitehouse.gov, they've added Barack Obama into him. It's incredible. Watch. In June 28th, 1985 speech, Reagan called for a fair tax code, one where a multimillionaire did not have a lower tax rate than his secretary. Today, President Obama is calling for the same with the Buffett rule. The history is out there on all of the presidents. The Heritage Foundation noticed this one about Ronald Reagan, so they went in and they checked all of the bios of the other presidents, and lo and behold, Barack Obama is now in all of the history of all of the presidents. He's suddenly mentioned alongside every president since Calvin Coolidge, except for Gerald Ford. I guess he didn't want anything to do with Ford. We'll show these to you tomorrow and what it means, because now we're living in a digital era where any kind of history can be changed. It's incredible. They'll do anything to win. And his surrogates are worse. I'm going to show you a piece of anti-American spin from an Obama advisor on Latino issues. I mean, I immediately go to Hollywood for this one. Eva Longoria.
No, but you know, people come to this country in different circumstances. Cubans came as political refugees. They were welcomed and supported and given financial aid. Mexicans were occupied. Puerto Ricans are still, you know, in flux whether they can vote or they can't vote, and you know, the statehood. So
will Rubio help him, or will he?
Well, I think it's funny because I think the argument between will Latinos now switch over to Mitt Romney because he's going to have a Latino running mate is saying that women would have voted for Palin just because she was a woman.
Right.
I think it's deceiving, and I think Latinos are smart.
Kind of insulting.
It's insulting, yeah.
Look, I don't have a problem with Eva Longoria being proud of her Mexican heritage. I don't really know. I don't care. I mean, personally, I'm extremely proud to be an American. I may have German heritage, but I wasn't born in Germany. My family's been over here for, you know, 100 years or so. But to each his own. You want to celebrate Mexico? Great. But for her to drop the Mexicans were occupied crap on us, for it to be eaten up by the mindless morons in the Bill Maher audience, it has got to be corrected. Set the record straight. Can we, please? Let me ask you this question. As occupiers, I suppose that American, the official language of the Mexican people, right? The American language. No? Well, then it must be English, don't you think? Wait. No, wait a minute. We allowed them to hang on to their Mexican language. Right? Yeah, that's it. Just out of the goodness of our hearts, to be spoken in Mexico now, Mexican is spoken. Now, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right either. Oh, I remember, the official language there is Spanish. Spanish? Now, wait a minute. How'd that happen? You see, the Spaniards occupied Mexico for 300 years. Where do you suppose the word Hispanic comes from? You're going to love this one. It's actually the word that Rome used for the region that included Spain when Rome, the Italians, occupied that region, Hispania. So Spanish comes from the root word Hispania, which the Italians used when they occupied what now is Spain. So the Spanish language, which is spoken by the Mexicans in most of South America, because the Spanish occupied Mexico and the regions of South America, but that comes really from the Romans who were occupying Spain. So how did he get to Mexico? From the time Cortez and Spain conquered Mexico. Shortly after arriving in 1519 until Mexico declared independence in 1810 and finally won it in 1821. It was Spain that occupied Mexico, not the United States of America. No, So the territory in question was Spanish territory for all but 15 years. Does anybody ever talk about giving it back to Spain? Because it was Mexico and Mexican territory until the Texans. And the Texans, mostly Anglos by that time, but also some Mexicans who came north, tried to overthrow the Spanish rule because they were tired of it. They declared their independence in 1836. So it hadn't been Mexico for 1,500 years, not even 150 years. It wasn't even 50 years. It was 15 years that it was Mexico, 15, period. Interestingly, Mexico never recognized Texas independence, even after losing the war with Texas. So the border disputes and incursions continued with the Mexicans. In 1845, Texas was annexed by the United States. We're occupying the Texans' land. And the border problem with Mexico became America's problem. When they were patrolling the disputed area between Texas and Mexico, 11 soldiers were killed by the Mexican military. 2 days later, May 13, 1846, Congress approved President James K. Polk's request to declare war on Mexico. By the time the war had ended, a little over a year and a half later, American troops had taken all of Texas, New Mexico, into Southern California to the west, and Monterrey, Mexico, northern and central Mexico, and all the way down to Mexico City itself on the south. That's how much we had. But on February 2nd, 1848, the two countries signed the Treaty of Guadalupe. What was this? Well, it was an agreement that meant that the U.S. troops would withdraw from Mexico, including Mexico City, and the U.S. would now take ownership of the southwestern United States in addition. Even after just routing Mexico's forces, the U.S. also agreed to buy the land for $15 million. Wait a minute. We bought the land? The United States did not occupy or rule Mexico. We didn't impose our government on them. We didn't leave troops behind in Mexico. The United States won a war, signed a treaty, and then went the extra distance. We paid for the land despite the victory. And as always, the United States left. It's fascinating, though, isn't it? Considering that history is being written by the winners, to look up the accounts on this war on the internet and see the unmistakable anti-American spin. History is written by the winners. How come it looks like this? Was the United States absolutely without fault in the lead up to the conflict? No. Manifest destiny played a role, and we've spoken out about that and against the evil that was 100 times on this program. But to paint Mexico as the purest driven snow, and certainly a no fault here, yet oh so picked on tiny little neighbor that's been there forever and ever, being bullied by the big, ugly superpower United States of America is ludicrous. America wasn't even a superpower in 1848. Yeah, granted, we had thrown the powerful British out 2 times. But Mexico had defeated the powerful Spaniards, not to mention that Mexico's Santa Anna was one of the great battle-hardened military leaders of the time and had vast numbers advantage over the U.S. troops in the war. Still, strangely, we are continually bombarded with the ignorance of people like Eva Longoria. And worse, many of our own politicians, leading to the pathetic immigration policies we have to endure to this day and the consternation of the world on this issue. It's astounding to witness the mentality of so many when it comes to the territory that seized in war, in which we were victorious and then we paid for. The only other country on earth that seems to be subjected to this mentality is what? Name it. Name one. I can only name one. Israel. The Israelis were granted their homeland by the United Nations, as were the Palestinians in the UN's partition plan of 1947. In 48, they were attacked by the Arab world in an effort to take all of the land for Palestine and kick the Jews out. Well, the Israelis won. But what did they do? They gave the land back that they had gained in that war. And then they were attacked again in 1956, and they won. They gained the Sinai Peninsula, which they gave back. They were surrounded and attacked again in 1967, this time routing the Arabs for 6 days. They pushed them all the way back. This time they gave back most of the land, but for the first time, not all of it, for security reasons, to stop the Arabs from using the West Bank and Gaza to launch attacks against them. I've stood right there. I've stood there. There's no way to defend the land without it. They kept a portion of it this time. And like the United States, they have never heard the end of it. In fact, today is Nakba Day, Nakba, which is Arabic for catastrophe or disaster. It marks the 64th anniversary of the establishment of Israel. Thousands of Palestinians rallied to commemorate Nakba Day by throwing stones and firebombs at Israeli civilians and IDF forces. What other nation has ever been subjected to this bizarre standard that land won in war is somehow or another disputed or occupied? I want you to look at a map, any map. Look at old maps. There are changes there all over the world. Why? I had a map. When I was a kid, I had a globe in my room. I wish I had it now. It said the Soviet Union on it. It looks different than it does now. But why? In large part because of wars. Check out a pre-World War I map of Europe. What happened to the Ottoman Empire? Why don't the Austro-Hungarians have their empire anymore? Why are Austria, Hungary, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Croatia, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Slovenia, large parts of Serbia and Romania, and smaller parts of Italy, Poland, Ukraine, why are they now occupying that territory? For some 50 years, the Soviet Union was the Soviet Union. Why? They just went and they took their satellite countries after World War II. We didn't like it, but the UN was positively silent. France, Great Britain, others still have colonies. Great Britain took the Falklands in Argentina back in 1982, and there's very little, if anything, said about that today. Even China's brutal occupation of Tibet draws zero condemnation in the UN and only an occasional Free Tibet bumper sticker on the back of Richard Gere's latest Mercedes S-Class. This is ridiculous, gang. It's time for the lies and the spin to stop. And if they don't want to stop it, that's fine. We just have to tell the truth to each other. We have to teach it to our kids. Let the truth be known and proclaimed to the world, a world nearly devoid of the truth right now. It's time for Eva Longoria and other people like her to stop. Eva, go find another slutty housewife to portray. I'm sure they're going to come up with another show for you. You're hot. But just stop telling the lies and the spin about the United States and Mexico. Can't we once again come together as different people with different ideas and different policies, but unite on the heritage of our ideas, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, among these life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? If and when we do that, we will become the melting pot. And that melting pot makes us stronger. And we will become invincible again, because we have once again recognized that the sum is greater than its parts. try as some may to make gold a partisan issue, they will fail, because it isn't. Both Republicans and Democrats seem hell-bent on spending the dollar into oblivion, making currency incredibly unreliable. In fact, what is reliable right now? There are no guarantees, but for me, I count on gold for about 10 to 20% of anything that I have. I've been called crazy, I've been called a fearmonger, I've been called every name in the book just for suggesting that gold has intrinsic value. Ever since I started buying gold at $300 an ounce, I've been called a kook. But where are the real true naysayers now that can back that up with any credible piece of information? Call the only company that I would trust for gold purchases, Goldline at goldline.com, or 800-757-GOLD. Call them today. Tell them that I sent you. You'll be glad you did. Find out their important risk information. 1-757-GOLD. That's 800-757-GOLD or goldline.com.
Hi everyone, this is Amelia from FreedomWorks, here to invite you to a very special event. FreePAC is a national gathering of Americans interested in restoring freedom. This year's event will feature speeches from Glenn Beck, Dick Armey, Matt Kibbe, and many of the biggest names in the freedom movement. So go to freepac.com today to pre-register and help restore liberty in your community and across the nation.
By age 5, I could drain a three-pointer. By 8, I could outplay opponents twice my size. By 10, I knew someday I would make the pros. Focus, dedication, determination. These are the things that have prepared me for today. But for what tomorrow might bring, I prepared with Food Insurance Emergency Food Supply. It gives me the confidence to face any opposition. Order today at foodinsurance.com.
It's an unpredictable world. Disaster can strike at any time. That's why Stove in a Can should always be part of your emergency survival plan. With power out and gas lines down, Stove in a Can cooks your food and rapidly boils water. Portable, safe, and easy to use. With an all-natural waterproof fuel source you can store indefinitely. Say goodbye to dangerous propane, lighter fluid, and gas. Don't wait until it's too late. Stock up today and protect your family. Special bundle offers available at stoveinacan.com.
Is your nonstick pan a sticking nightmare? Don't live in fear. The solution is here with Organic Kitchenware, the new nonstick cookware with revolutionary green ceramic coating. Now you can saute or fry with little or no grease or fat. Foods never stick, so you never scrub. Look how with just water, burnt fudge cleans up in a breeze. Don't worry about eggs sticking to the pan. They'll slide right out. Order your 10-inch Organic fry pan right now for just $19.99. If it ever dulls or damages, we'll replace it. It's the pan that slips and slides for life. But we're still not done. Call or click right this minute and you can double your order. You get 2 Organic 10-inch fry pans with recipe books and a lifetime warranty. A whopping $220 value, all yours for $19.99. And when you call, find out about free shipping.
Call 1-800-603-7571. But hurry, we're giving away a special offer on a second Organic pan with 2 days' orders. So call 1-800-603-7571 and find out about free shipping. That's 1-800-603-7571. Call now.
Okay. Sorry we missed you, Amy. I want to tell you about the NATO summit that's happening in Chicago this weekend. If there is anything we can expect out of Chicago, it's, of course, calm, quiet weekend, no violence whatsoever. That's why they're only assigning 3,100 Chicago police officers to the summit, as well as hundreds of officers from Milwaukee, Philadelphia, and Charlotte, North Carolina. It's an odd one to throw in there, isn't it? Think of the overtime. What's going to happen? Well, Europe has much bigger concerns right now than protesters at the summit here in Chicago. They are openly warning for what they've said is coming. For years it's been coming. Dominoes falling. And once one falls, they all fall. An EU official said, quote, an exit would bring down the whole house of cards. With one state falling after another, it would reach Portugal, Spain, than Italy and France. There is a way out. It's low, flat taxes and serious spending cuts. Got to have both of them. The problem is over there, they don't have small government. They don't understand small government. And you need somebody with extraordinary bravery that can make that case. And they don't have it, and they wouldn't do it. And quite honestly, I think it may be too late to make that case in Europe because they're so far ahead. They're so far down this road. They also have another problem in Europe, and that is nationalism. That's where the neo-Nazis come in. Neo-Nazis are on the rise now in Europe. We warned you about this for a while, but now it's actually starting to happen, and it's a little spooky. I want you to listen to this from an MP from the UK Independence Party in the EU.
And the EU Titanic has now hit the iceberg. It is a European Union of economic failure, of mass unemployment, of low growth, but worst of all, it's an EU with the economic prison of the euro. And this now poses huge dangers to the continent. We face the prospect of mass civil unrest, possibly even revolution, in some countries that are being driven into total and utter desperation. But there is perhaps an opportunity, there is perhaps some good news, that now a democratic rebellion has begun. It began in Finland last year, with the True Finns getting nearly 20% of the vote. And we're seeing in country after country new political movements on the right and the left making big scores. But that may not all be good news, because in Greece what we saw last Sunday was rather reminiscent of the German election of 1932. We saw the status quo centre collapse and the extremes of right and left rise. You know, this project could even cause the rebirth of National Socialism in Europe. We are headed the wrong way. We must break up the Eurozone. We must set those Mediterranean countries free. We must try to build a Europe. I want a Europe, but a Europe based on trade, a Europe based on cooperation, a Europe based on us sitting round the table and agreeing sensible rules on crime and the environment. We can do all of those things, but we cannot do it if we're asked to rally behind that flag. I owe no allegiance to that flag, and nor do most of the people in Europe either.
He is 100% right. I mean, do you think Germans are really going to rally behind the EU flag when it's time to bail out Greece, Italy, Spain? Really? Why should the Germans have to suffer because the Greeks, you know, were wearing their Speedos down on the beach when they're 50 years old? Or they were, you know, building 30 gigantic Olympic stadiums that are now sitting there empty and rotting. Why should Germans do it? Once you understand that feeling, and you can do it, because why should you have to pay for California's mistakes? Once you get that, you understand what the outgoing Greek prime minister said, quote, "If Greece cannot meet its obligations and serve the debt on the pain will be great. What will prevail are armed gangs with Kalashnikovs, and which one has the greatest number of Kalashnikovs will count. We'll end up in a civil war." Most people don't want to pay attention to what's happening in Europe. Only 3% here in America say they are paying attention to it, but we have to, because it is coming. And maybe if we're not smart, it'll come here. Remember when we showed you American unions sending messages of solidarity to the Arab Spring protesters? We later found out that they were on the ground helping them organize, and we told you that it would eventually come here. And sure enough, we got Occupy Wall Street that very fall, and the main goal is what the socialist revolutionaries and Islamists all want, the end of capitalism. This brings me back to Chicago. This week in Chicago, protesters urging a week without capitalism rushed into the Obama campaign headquarters. 8 of them were arrested after they refused to leave the lobby. Things are expected to get so bad, workers at some Chicago office towers are actually now being told to dress down and avoid being targeted by protesters during the summit. One company sent a notice to their employees to wear clothes that make you look like a protester. I'm not sure how many people really want to dress like an Occupy protester. I mean, I don't really want to wear urine-soaked hippie rags all day. But each his own, I guess. I saw that this morning and I thought, you remember a couple of years ago when I talked about this, how there would come a time when you'd need a second set of clothes or a second car just to get in and out of town. You remember this?
I talked to somebody who lived through Argentina.
when Argentina was people who had any money whatsoever went out almost in disguise. They bought the cheapest shoes, the cheapest clothes. It's the opposite of our society now. You didn't want the polo pony on your shirt because you were marked for beatings or robbery. It is a different world we're entering.
Okay, that was 2 years ago. You'd expect the President of the United States to be the mediator, trying to ease the tensions, but the President is stirring the pot, and he keeps pointing the finger, saying it's their fault. It's the rich man's fault that did this to you. That's not going to help. For all the left's talk about violent rhetoric, what do they think constantly vilifying and dehumanizing the rich as soulless, greedy animals accomplishes? It clears the path for violence. One other thing. The 1 week without capitalism people who stormed Obama's headquarters, supposedly organized by a Catholic group. Now, I have no idea if these guys are even Catholic or not, but when you visit their website, here's the list of links. Occupy Together, Occupy Wall Street, Office for Social Justice Teachings of the Catholic Church, Industrial Workers of the World. Isn't it interesting? Also, there's this one, Sojourners. That's Jim Wallace's site, the president's spiritual advisor. Groups affiliated with the president's spiritual advisor are storming the president's office in the name of Catholicism. We're being divided, and unrest is being stirred. When I saw this earlier, I thought to myself, I don't even know anything at all about this Catholic group. But I know somebody who does. Bill Donahue, he's the president of the Catholic League. He is also the author of the new book, Why Catholicism Matters, which comes out on May 29th. You can pre-order it now online at Barnes & Noble and Amazon.com. Bill.
Thank you very much for having me.
You bet. Tell me about this group.
Yes, the Catholic worker movement began in 1933. A woman by the name of Dorothy Day. She was fairly radical at the time, and she traveled in some kind of left-wing circles. However, in fairness to her, she made some mistakes. I mean, at one point she had an abortion, which she later regretted very deeply. She did reach out to the poor, and she did include drug addicts and prostitutes and others. She took in people others would not.
Well, so
she was
Jesus.
a strong opponent of the New Deal. She believed that Catholics had to go out and help each person personally and not depend on the government, which would, in fact, create a state of dependency. So to that extent, by today's markings, she would be regarded as being somewhat conservative, quite unlike the ragtag band today that has slapped the name Catholic on their anarchism.
Okay, Dorothy Day is kind of a tough one because, I mean, I read the book, and you know, you find out that she is against New Deal. You find out that she has a problem with it because it is government dependency. But she also married an anarchist, and she is, I believe, I didn't have a chance to check today, but I think that Obama and everybody else has done a big deal on Dorothy Day, and she's a hero of the uber left. Is she just Is she just been co-opted, kind of like Dietrich Bonhoeffer has been co-opted by the left, and he's not a lefty?
No, she's definitely been co-opted. Listen, the late John Cardinal O'Connor was a great man, and he was hardly some kind of a screaming socialist, and he put her on the course to sainthood. She was a good woman. She admitted she had made mistakes in the past. She wouldn't be too happy. In fact, she's got to be turning over in her grave to see that these people who are out there with the Occupy Wall Street people, they have no organization. They stand for nothing. As a matter of fact, Glenn, just pick it up from here. They want a week without capitalism. The old Marxists would have said, we want an eternity with socialism. They can't sell socialism because it's failed all over the globe. So all they want to do now is like nihilist. They want to annihilate. They want to rip down capitalism. They don't have a single blueprint to put in its place. She actually did pay her dues. She went out there one-on-one to help the poor. These people, all they do is they throw up their tents, they sing, they dance, they take over buildings and the like. They have nothing in common with Dorothy Day. They are a disgrace. And on top of that, they're in the wrong religion. We are not a pacifistic religion. They're against NATO. I'm a veteran and the president of the Catholic League. I'm glad we have NATO, and I want a stronger NATO.
Okay, so here's the problem, Bill, and I'm so glad to have you on because, you got to go to the source instead of, you don't talk to the Chevy dealer about a Ford. Let's talk to the Catholics about the Catholics. I see this, and I think the average non-Catholic sees this and says, what are the Catholics doing? 'Cause just like, you had the nun, I don't remember her name, but she came out, was it Sister Jean or something? And she came out and she said, hey, Obamacare is great. And you're like, what are the Catholics doing now? But there is a real split in the church. Do you know anything specifically about this group? Because these guys, they're communists.
Yeah, they are. I would call them more like anarchists, communists, whatever. Look, a communist at least had a blueprint. They were totally flawed, but at least they had some idea of where they thought we could take us. These people just want to tear down. They're more like brats who see the erector set and they just want to destroy it. They don't want to put up anything in its place. There's nothing Catholic about them. They're a ragtag group. They don't have any board of directors. They have no headquarters. They can just slap the name Catholic on there, and the media will give them that attention. And you know what? They have a bipolar age distribution. In other words, there's the very young, the ones in the 20s who are very angry, they don't want to get a job, and then the others who are about maybe 6 to 12 months away from assisted living.
Okay, so you don't mince any words. What you're saying is they're the 60s hippies, the radicals,
right.
And then the 20-somethings that they have co-opted, which is exactly what we're seeing in the universities.
That's exactly right. Everybody else has a job. They're normal. They go to work. You have a generation of young people, obviously in their 20s, who don't seem to want to, get in step with the rest of us and get a job, or maybe they can't get a job. And then you got the old hippies who are out there. Some of them are Catholic, some of them are Protestants, Jewish, whatever they might be. They have more in common with each other, certainly do with the rank-and-file Catholics who go to church on Sunday and pay the bills for the Catholic Church. I guarantee it's been a long time since these people ever went to church and gave any money. Which, you take a look at the work of Arthur Brooks and others, the people on the left are the ones who give the least amount of money to the poor. And there's a reason for that. They think that they have a right to pick the pocket of the rich, and that's the way to help the poor. Dorothy Day knew better. You had to help them out one-on-one and not just rip off the poor and say, my job is done. These people are a disgrace.
Okay. So, Bill, I'm LDS. And the LDS community, whenever we see these guys on TV who are dressed up in their, pioneer clothes and they're living in some compound and they've got 14 wives, the church and every member that I know, they cringe because they're like, they're not Mormons. They can claim to be Mormons, but they're not Mormons. They're violating all of the principles of the church. Is the Catholic Church going to come out and make a stand against, not necessarily this group, but and I know that's a very small number, but it is one that gets press all the time. These socialists, and even Nancy Pelosi, that comes out and says, my Catholic teaching tells me that we should be for abortions. We should be for gay marriage. What are you talking about? That's not the Catholic theology. Does it behoove the church to come out and say, these people are not Catholic?
Well, here, you're absolutely right. Now you're getting a lot closer to the bullseye. You bring in people like Pelosi, for example. I've been very kind to her. I've given her the book Catholicism for Dummies, but she evidently has not read it. Either that or she's not too smart. But she's out there. She's pro-abortion. She certainly supports what's happening this Friday. In Georgetown University, the oldest Catholic university in the country, they brought in Kathleen Sebelius, the good friend of George the Killer Tiller, the partial birth abortionist. She'll be speaking at one of about 14 or 15 commencement exercises. The Archdiocese of Washington, I'm very proud of Cardinal Wuerl. The Catholic Standard newspaper put out a statement heavily criticizing Georgetown for what they're doing. But you got your finger on the pulse. You're right, Glenn. There is a schism. There is a split within the Catholic community. The rebellion, because we know that the bishops led by Timothy Cardinal Dolan, the head of the USCCB, he has been leading the charge against the Obama administration for having the nerve to try and shove down this HHS mandate down our throats and make us pay for abortion-inducing drugs in our health care plans. This has ignited the Catholic left to say, oh, wait a minute, we love Obama. We're not going to do anything to do with Romney and anybody else. And so they're out there. Georgetown is leading the way. I really honestly don't know the difference between Georgetown University and George Washington University, except that the latter has more integrity.
Okay. But tell me what you really feel. So then let's get a little more specific on this question. why wouldn't they, again, we go back to polygamists. They're excommunicated in my church. If you are actively pushing for abortion or anything that is going against the teachings of the church, why aren't they excommunicated?
Well, first of all, I think people don't seem to understand. Excommunicated simply means not thrown out. Catholic Church doesn't really throw people out. What it means, you can't avail yourself of the sacraments. There are two ways you can get excommunicated. The church could notify you, but believe me, it doesn't come in the overnight mail.
Right.
It typically happens because people voluntarily do it. Let me be very explicit here. Under canon law, people who are abortion providers or strong supporters have excommunicated themselves. Now, I've said before on other TV stations, and I'm going to say it tonight, I don't believe, personally, that Kathleen Sebelius is a Catholic. And why do I say that? Because the last 3 consecutive archbishops of Kansas City have brought her in, have talked to her about her situation, and one of them asked her point blank, can you name for me a single abortion restrictive law that you've ever promoted, ever sponsored, ever supported? She said no. If Kathleen Sebelius hasn't excommunicated herself for her abortion enthusiasm, then I think the term has no meaning. I don't regard her as a Catholic.
I'm just, the only reason why I ask this is, I mean, it's not my place to judge anybody. It's not my place to look into anybody's faith. It's just that sometimes our faiths are being diluted because, again, not being a Catholic, I watch this group on TV and I listen to Kathleen Sebelius, I listen to Nancy Pelosi, and I'm like, what? How are these? I mean, I know the teachings of the Catholic Church enough to know that this isn't right, but how come the church doesn't come out and isn't crystal clear with these guys in public, or have they? Is the media just so incompetent that we haven't covered it?
Well, I don't think that's the matter of incompetence. I think the bias is there. I'll give you a perfect example. The Leadership Conference of Women Religious. Now, only 3% of nuns actually belong to this organization, but they claim to represent 57,000 nuns. The Vatican has asked for an inquiry. Why? Because nuns that I know, like the Sisters of Life and the Dominican Sisters, Mother of Eucharist, they are fed up with nuns who have lost their moorings. That is to say, we're talking about pro-abortion and pro-homosexual nuns. There's more than just a few of them. I met quite a few of them when I was a college professor at a Catholic school, nominally speaking. And now they're looking into this and finding out, you know, do you people really belong in this as a sister when you don't accept the teachings of the Catholic Church? What's happened? The media have painted the Catholic bishops as bullies, misogynists, out there to oppress people, to beat them down. This is what bothers me. Why don't the mainstream media bring in the nuns who belong to the groups like the Sisters of Choice, Sisters of Life in New York City, and the Dominican Sisters, and ask them what they think of some of these renegade nuns? They don't talk to us about them.
Bill, we'll do it. Thank you very much for being on the program. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Back in just a minute.
And gold was $272 an ounce. By 2010, the U.S. debt was $13.5 trillion. Gold had risen to $1,421. Today, our government is projecting over $20 trillion of debt in the year 2016. Isn't it time you own gold? You can't control federal spending, but you can control where you put your investment dollars. Goldline has safely delivered billions of dollars in gold to its clients for over 50 years. Diversifying with gold is a smart strategy, and it's easy to get started. Call Goldline and get your free investor kit. Be sure to ask about our price guarantee program. Use your credit card for safety and convenience, and enjoy free shipping. Call Goldline now and buy gold with confidence. Get started today with Goldline.
You look so beautiful, but you're about to lose everything.
You're going to lose everything.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here.
You're going to lose your files.
There's no warning when you lose your computer files. That's why you need Carbonite Online Backup. So whatever happens, your files are safe. Try it for free at Carbonite.com.
Hi everyone, this is Amelia from FreedomWorks, here to invite you to a very special event. FreePAC is a national gathering of Americans interested in restoring freedom. This year's event will feature speeches from Glenn Beck, Dick Armey, Matt Kibbe, and many of the biggest names in the freedom movement. So go to freepack.com today to pre-register and help restore liberty in your community and across the nation.
Mortgage lenders lied. Banks cheated and committed fraud. If you believe you're the victim of lender negligence, greed, or corruption, if your home is worth less than what you owe, if you're currently in or facing foreclosure, or if you have a sale date, 1-800-513-0934. Our job is to dramatically lower your mortgage balance or lower your interest rate to just 2% fixed for life. Take action now. When you lose your home, it will be too late. 1-800-513-0934.
Maybe the best way to describe the effect Jim Brady has on people is to read you a letter that I received from Mrs. James H. Terrell of Alexandria, Virginia, a few months ago. Her son John had heard about what we're trying to do, and although he's only 9, he wanted to help. So he decided to go out on that bike path that's along Mount Vernon Highway and sell lemonade for 10 cents a cup to raise money. And his mother wrote, on Sunday, April 18, 1982, young John Terrell enjoyed selling lemonade and fruit punch to the many thirsty bicyclers on the bike trail. His goal was to help Mr. Jim Brady financially. His efforts collected the enclosed $37, and he did this by 10 cents a cup plus a few tips. Please accept John's love gift for Jim Brady.
That was Ronald Reagan, 1982, highlighting one of the donations given to the James Brady Presidential Foundation. Our children's first interaction with entrepreneurship is the lemonade stand, selling a refreshing drink to thirsty people on a hot summer day. It's kind of supply and demand 101. It's like a pop-up version of Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations. And unsurprisingly, the left wants to regulate it and put it in the dustbins of history. The same thing is happening with the bake sale. Drizzling a cookie with chocolate is the new pollution of drinking water with industrial waste. Jell-O is the new genocide. Oh my gosh, this isn't a cereal bar, is it? Ah! It's the new serial killer. Kids used to learn a valuable lesson with bake sales. Ooh. Left the chocolate milk here. If you're short on cash, you didn't go and beg the government for it. You spent a morning with grandma and you made a 7-layer bar. And then you spent the afternoon charging an impossibly low price for a tasty service. That's it. Instead, all of this stuff is now banned under the auspices of health. Food trucks selling snacks, banned from approaching now California schools. Boston schools warned, do not send one of these in with your kids. In Illinois, it's treats for their birthday, all gone. Los Angeles is strawberry and chocolate milk. You can't have this in school anymore in California. This one I understand, but this is yummy goodness. Some people think that I only do this show so I can eat. I don't know what they're talking about. Trans fats, sugar, salt, all the enemy now. And the left is somehow able to find time, while fighting against the war on women, a way to attack everything that tastes good. However, we here at GBTV are not going to let good, sweet treats like this one and refreshing drinks like this one go by so easily. On June 13th, we're going to do a lemonade stand, a bake sale, a hug-a-thon to raise money for my charity, Mercury One, and quite honestly, piss off the left. Ooh, is this a milkshake? I believe it is. In fact, I want you to make everything and anything you're good at. If you're good at, oh, this is delicious. If you're good at making this, go for it. Just make it yourself. Make it and sell it so the money will go to a great charity. Now, ask yourself this question. Before you make anything, would Michelle Obama tell me not to eat it?
If the answer is yes, make double the bout and sell it for charity. Now, here are some helpful suggestions. Let's say you mastered a carrot cake. Where's the carrot cake? I don't see the carrot cake. This isn't a carrot cake. Is this what you're saying is carrot cake, Tiffany?
I think it's carrot cake, Glenn.
No, it's not. This is a Napoleon, may I just say. That's what this is. I know, I'm a baker's son. Don't try to pass off carrot cakes when it's a Napoleon. Anyway, you also have the bittersweet chocolate, the molten chocolate cake, and that you can put with a little cappuccino ice cream. I mean, doesn't that sound delicious? You want to get a little fancy? Try whipping up a batch of your world-famous creme brulee. Do we have creme brulee here? I don't think we have creme brulee. I mean, how can I go on? Or strawberry shortcake, Or you could get sophisticated with the log roll here. That's what this is. I don't think we have the flourless cake, do we? But, you got this. You have pineapple upside down cake. You have this, which I have a feeling started in the kitchen looking better than... We're in Texas. A lot of ranches around here. I'm saying don't bring anything that looks like that. Okay? Of course, you could bring something like this. Or, you know what? The chocolate bread pudding. That looks good, huh? Doesn't that look good? Or a key lime pie. Or whatever. Classic birthday cake. These things are always good, especially with a little ice cream. Then it's particularly yummy. Let's say you have a freezer full, a few good bowls of ice cream. You mix up a few bananas in it, make a chocolate shake. You got yourself a hearty meal that Michelle Obama will hate. But, if I may say, you add this, a burger and fries, you add it to this, you have 1,700 calories. You're guaranteed to be healthy just with this. But you add the ice cream on top. May I just say, now you are talking about some yummy goodness. And Michelle Obama hates you forever. Now, if you can get these fried twice in clarified butter, now we're talking show business. You know what I'm saying? Look, this is the deal. It tastes good. Fry up some green tomatoes, onion rings. Add some fried oysters here, right here. You got a fry-o-later? Throw some soft-shell crabs in it. Tempura style. Forget the ratatouille sauce. I didn't like the stupid gnocchi anyway. Chicken salad with cashews? I don't know. It's got cashews, it's got chicken in it. It sounds too healthy for me. Where's some potato gnocchi? That's a gnocchi. Or just a biscuit. I don't know. I'm cool with it. Burger with scallop mousse? Sure. Whatever. Homemade chips? Yes. By the way, all this food, it sounds a little detailed, doesn't it? And fattening. And some of it sounds a little pretentious, don't you think? And not all of it is bake sale friendly. But what this is a real list of everything that Michelle Obama has been eating while she's been trying to tell us to eat salads. It's the Queen in the Tower declaring, let them eat cake. Okay, all right. How about onion rings, too? The American people sometimes go to sleep when liberty is threatened. And they only wake up at the very moment where they're about to lose it. That won't happen when we're talking about macaroons. Stand up and fight for the lemonade stand and the bake sale on June 13th. Get details at glennbeck.com. We already have lemonade stands and bake sales already starting to happen all across the country. Email us at bakesale@gbtv.com. And may I just say, get in on some of the action because this is good stuff. Michelle Obama knows she's been eating all of it.
Get your cookies, your apple pies, and your pitchers of lemonade. You can help GBTV bring communities together for a good cause. And yes, you'll need to be armed with cupcakes. On Wednesday, June 13th, we're calling on 912 groups across the country. Host a bake sale or set up a lemonade stand in your town, and you could help us meet our goal. GBTV will be broadcasting live from the sweet spot that promises the largest turnout. And remember, if Glenn is coming, you're gonna need to bake extra cookies. No, really.
You know what I mean?
Email us at bakesale@gbtv.com and tell us your plans. Wednesday, June 13th, only on GBTV.
All right. The IRS is nasty. Have you ever tried this? I think this is brown sugar and bananas and ice cream. I've never had it. I don't even know who made it. This is like found ice cream. I've been sitting in the back room for a while. I think it's great. I get it. They're telling me to hurry up, stop eating, tell you about. Look, right there. Got tax problems? Call them, write them, whatever. They'll help you. But may I say, in the meantime, go get a bowl of ice cream, put some brown sugar on it and some bananas. It's delicious. Yeah, I got it. TaxResolution.com. Whatever. Call them.
Bringing a firearm into your home is one of the most important decisions you can make. If you are considering gun ownership, CheaperThanDirt.com is here to help you make a responsible and informed choice. We understand it is a personal decision how you choose to protect your family. We offer thousands of choices of firearms, ammunition, and accessories to suit your individual needs. Be responsible, be proactive, and exercise your Second Amendment right. Find us online at CheaperThanDirt.com. That's CheaperThanDirt.com.
The TRS Files, True Tax Resolution Stories.
Hi, I'm Stuart B. I'm in the insurance industry and I'm from Southern California. I faced a potential liability of $106,000. Tax Resolution Services settled for $9,200.
If you owe the IRS over $20,000 or more in back taxes, have unfiled returns, or are under audit, call Tax Resolution Services now, 888-7804-TAX, or visit taxresolution.com/GBTV.
Hi everyone, this is Amelia from FreedomWorks, here to invite you to a very special event. FreePAC is a national gathering of Americans interested in restoring freedom. This year's event will feature speeches from Glenn Beck, Dick Armey, Matt Kibbe, and many of the biggest names in the freedom movement. So go to freepac.com today to pre-register and help restore liberty in your community and across the nation.
Stop switching back and forth between drill bits and driver heads. Bo Ryle's here for the halftime drill driver, the innovative new way to drill, flip, and drive in only 5 seconds. You'll never have to change a bit in the middle of a job again. And you can go from drilling to driving, Phillips to flat, any combination for any task. The breakthrough, our patent-pending swivel head that flips and locks, giving you precision performance from drilling to driving in seconds. You get the halftime drill driver for only $19.95. I'll even include 4 Phillips heads, 4 flat, and 4 drill bits, no charge. Call now and receive this durable carry case free. Call or click right this minute and get a second complete set free. Just pay separate processing and handling. You get it all for the low, low price of just $19.95.
To order halftime drill driver for $19.95 plus processing and handling, call 1-800-651-0874 or log on to gethalftime.com.
Tomorrow night, the return of the Oval from Dallas. Good night, America.
Breaking news tonight. We got real news. This just in.
Real news from The Blaze.
Welcome, everybody, to Real News from The Blaze. Today marks the second day of talks between Iran and the International Atomic Energy Agency regarding the Islamic regime's nuclear program. But while the negotiations have captured most of the attention, what's gone practically unnoticed is an effort in Washington to have an Iranian terrorist organization removed from the U.S. State Department's terror list. Mujahideen al-Khal, or MEK as we'll be referring to it, has been considered a terrorist entity for 15 years, but it's now poised to shed that label after very aggressive lobbying by a bipartisan group of D.C. heavyweights. Joining us at the table to help us understand all of this is Lisa Daftari, a journalist who's covered Iran and counterterrorism extensively. But first, we have our very own Will Kane to lay this out for us.
Yeah, let's set the stage one more time. So May 23rd, a week from now roughly, the world leaders will meet in Baghdad once again to attempt to curb Iran's quest for nuclear weapons. And they will meet significantly with Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei. He'll be part of this meeting. Now, going in, according to many accounts, and Gerald Sieb wrote about this morning in the Wall Street Journal, he says that it appears that economic sanctions are having some effect on Iran, that oil tankers are sitting off the coast of Iran, essentially loitering, that they can't get any oil to export. And on top of that, here at the beginning of June, Europe is in line to then put a ban on Iranian oil. So the theory is Iran is feeling the pinch. They're feeling the need to look at possible negotiations with the world. Now, well, by the way, I want to point this out. Supposedly, these are the things we can hope to accomplish or would hope to accomplish out of this meeting. We have a list of these we put up. But we were going to be negotiating essentially for these things to happen, to have Iran ship out of the country any uranium they've already enriched to 20%. On top of that, they would end any enrichment of uranium above the 5% level that most people consider moving you towards weaponization. And we'd like to shut down or at least reduce the nuclear facilities around the city of Qom. Am I pronouncing that right?
Oh, that's good enough.
I'm going to let you go with that. Which is one of the primary facilities for enriching uranium in Iran. That's the goals for these world talks in Iran. Now, against that backdrop, the United States government is taking steps to take this organization, I'm so glad you pronounced it, Amy, but the Mujahideen al-Khal off of the State Department's terrorism watch list, a place where they've been for 15 years. Now, why was this group on the terrorism watch list for the State Department? They are an Iranian opposition group. They have violently opposed first the Shah in Iran, and during that time supposedly killed United States citizens, and then violently opposed the Islamic Revolution. So they have been opposed to basically everybody in power for the past, I don't know, what, 30, 40, 50 years in Iran since the 60s. Right. Right. So it begs the question now, why are they being removed from the terrorist watch list or the State Department's terrorist list at this time? And for that question, I'm going to turn to you, Lisa. Why is this group being removed from the watch list?
Well, there's so many different answers, and you got to look at it from different angles. The simple answer is what the administration would want us to believe is they're getting off on good behavior. They've put aside terrorism, which is very hard to believe because the foundation of their organization is they are an Islamist Marxist group. As you said, opposed the Shah, opposed the revolution, opposed capitalism, opposed Western influence. I mean, now all of a sudden they're getting off on good behavior.
Is that the real reason? You said that's the stated reason that they've been good boys and we can remove them from the list now. Is that the real reason?
No, the real reason is that our administration has a history of cozying up to the enemy of my enemy, believing that is, but when the enemy of my enemy is a terrorist, are they not a terrorist because they are the enemy of my enemy?
It's a great question.
No.
Well, they also, the MEK says, they're interested in overthrowing the mullahs. Well, so are we, coincidentally.
Is that sort of the best point? There are a lot of people interested in overthrowing the mullahs. Yeah. But it seems that just as there are a lot of people who are willing to or wanted to overthrow Mubarak in Egypt and in Libya and in Tunisia, Syria, right. In Syria and, look at Afghanistan. We've done so much work there. We've been there for so long, but now we want to talk with the Taliban.
Right.
So, what we do is we just look around. It's like in Washington. Oh my gosh. Okay, here they are. They're right here. They're making themselves so apparent by lobbying, by making themselves known, by handing out money. In this case, we've read that they've given tens of thousands of dollars to influential advocates. And we have some names, actually.
We actually could put up a list of that right now, or a picture
I
of
wanted
some of these
to get
guys.
to that. This list of lobbyists, and as we discussed, these are heavy hitters. These are big, brand names.
Ballsy,
Howard Dean, Fran Townsend, Wesley Clark, Governor Ed Rendell, Mayor Rudy Giuliani, Secretary Tom Ridge.
Bipartisan.
So Lisa,
they've done their homework. They've done their homework, and as you said, they've been around since '65. They know what they're doing. They've been kicked out of so many countries. They've been, outed so many times, and as you said, there's a reason why they've been put on this list.
Right, but my question to you, with that list, when I see Mayor Giuliani, America's mayor after 9/11, I see Secretary Tom Ridge, former Secretary of Homeland Security, should we not trust their judgment that this organization has reformed itself?
I think what I've come to see in my work as a journalist covering the region is that there is a naivete, there's this, and I want to give the benefit of the doubt, not to believe that our elected officials are in bed with terrorists, or that they'd want these influences to, be spread. That there's a certain greenness to a lot of the people that are in Washington that are the heavy hitters, as you said. And I think it was apparent in 2009 when it was the Iranian, the uprising in the aftermath of the Iranian election. And President Obama waited, and he didn't support the people, and it was then said that that was the biggest opportunity, the most opportune moment for our administration to support an uprising, a people's movement, an actual organic movement. And later, I think it was in a BBC interview where Secretary Clinton admitted that the White House is being advised by people who were incorrect about how to go forward.
Can I ask you, what is your concern, other than sort of it seems like you're making an argument on principle. This group has been involved in terrorism, therefore should stay on the list. I would assume that people would counter that with, well, at some point we have a list so we can take people off it through negotiations and for political reasons. What's the worst that can happen if they are removed from the list? Is it just an issue of principle? I mean, if that's your sentence, I just want to know, do you think they would return to terrorism in some capacity? And what's the fear?
Oh, that, but I mean, at this point,
so,
it's a drop.
You think they could return to terrorism?
Well, they could, and maybe they won't. But the point is, what's the, I mean, the worst case and the best case. So the best case is that no, they're going to be well behaved. But at that point, even if they are well behaved, what message are we sending to the Islamic Republic when we're saying, we're taking this group that was a terrorist organization off the list on the eve of, talks where we want to sit down and we want to actually have, negotiations and a peaceful resolution to not only your nuclear program, but your rogue.
Doesn't that assume that Iran would negotiate in good faith to begin with? Isn't there an assumption there?
But isn't the international community assuming that they're going to come to the table? Regardless, I'm not saying that the talks are going to, result in anything positive. I don't know.
Well, and Lisa, isn't some of the damage from this already done in some sense? I mean, I've read reports that we've been sort of using MEK for information gathering on Iran's nuclear program, and obviously we've been very public about setting this conditional timeline for them, that they have to vacate the base in Iraq. And we've been very open about our willingness to negotiate with them. So I'm wondering, I mean, what's the big deal now if we take them off this list? We've already proven to the international community that we are working.
Yeah, just closing the barn door after the horse
alongside
is left,
these guys.
Taking them off the list is the first step. Will we be using them? Will we be saying to the opposition, the rest of the Iranian opposition, who are actually more pure in their approach, maybe more secular in their approach, maybe more democratic in their approach?
That's the question. Does it undercut the Green Movement?
Yeah, right. Absolutely. So this. What a lot of people that I've talked to are fearful is that this, similar to the Muslim Brotherhood, similar to other organizations that are being supported by our administration, does not represent the millions of people in Iran who want to see change.
But for many, and this goes back to what your point, SC, is, and the one you've made several times, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. In fact, we have Congressmen of the United States on the record with this sort of perspective. We have Representative Dana Rohrabacher, a Republican from California, who said, if there's a coalition against the mullahs, then we should fund that coalition, and the MEK should be part of that. So that's not just talking about taking them off the State Department's terrorism list. That's talking about funding the MEK as well.
Right, and the most important aspect of what you just read is that if a coalition is to be formed and the MEK is a part of it, most other opposition groups will not be a part of that coalition.
Right.
So you are undercutting. You're sending the wrong message to Tehran on the eve of negotiations. If we're attempting to go to the talks, we should go to the talks.
That seems to be the compelling reason. Is that
if we're going to go, we should go. I'm not saying that we should have even started with them, because I don't believe you can negotiate with terrorists to begin with. But that's.
But see, so just to make this clear, you think that the bad part about removing them from the list is that it undercuts the legitimate opposition inside Iran, as well as external groups that are.
Absolutely, and then it sends the wrong message. I mean, you can buy your way off the list. Apparently, you can. You can have the influence in Washington where if you say, look at me, now you become a legitimate opposition.
Doesn't it do this? Let me ask you guys this as well, because Buck, you and Essie both have made this point. Doesn't it also call into question how we define terrorism? That if you employ terroristic tactics throughout your history, but the minute you become a useful asset to the United States in some way, you're not really a terrorist anymore. What is our definition of terrorism? Only those that are not useful to us?
Well, they did publicly denounce violence, right? I mean, they did take that step. We don't have to leave them.
If you have a list, you should be able to get removed from it. I do think we have to establish that as a principle here.
Timing is obviously the most crucial element here.
Do you think that financial funding is something that you see realistically happening in the near future, though? That extra step, if you're saying this is a stepping stone, how realistic do you think that is, that we would extend money their way?
To the MEK. Yeah. I think it's very probable. They're getting funds from other
Europe
places
already.
To begin.
Right. So U.S. taxpayer dollars could end up in MEK's coffers, is what you're saying.
That's very possible, because obviously we've put aside budget to help the opposition.
And they also want to fundraise
here. And if we're taking them off the list and using them as the opposition, well, then that's just...
So, Lisa, you mentioned something that sort of pricked my attention, which is you said if the MEK is in the coalition collapses. So I wonder, is this a real misreading of the State Department of just Iranian politics?
I mean, it's happened before. It wouldn't be the first time. But, for the Iranian people, the MEK still remain a terrorist organization. The Iranian people remember their actions well. 17,000 people died at the hands of MEK and their terroristic actions that played out in the country. And, when they cozied up with the Iraqis, I mean, that's a big slap in the face. Iran and Iraq have been rivals for many years. So now, for them to now win back, the loyalty of the Iranian people, and for them to become this golden child of the U.S. administration, I think it would completely undermine many things that have been put into place for the last 3 decades.
Lisa, thank you so much for sharing your insights. We appreciate it. Hope to have you back. Well, the Obama administration's economic failures get no shortage of scrutiny, but there hasn't been much said about what could be a rather large hole in the White House's national security policy. We'll take a look at that when we return.
By age 5, I could drain a three-pointer. By 8, I could outplay opponents twice my size. By 10, I knew someday I would make the pros. Focus, dedication, determination. These are the things that have prepared me for today. But for what tomorrow might bring, I prepared with Food Insurance Emergency Food Supply. It gives me the confidence to face any opposition. Order today at foodinsurance.com.
Hi everyone, this is Amelia from FreedomWorks, here to invite you to a very special event. Free Pack is a national gathering